Hello, this is the Domain 7, Kings and Queens, Lesson 2, the Royal Family. So here's some vocabulary to start us off for this lesson. The first word is advantages, and advantages are good things about a situation or a circumstance. For example, the advantage to having brothers and sisters are that you always have someone to play with and someone to help you with your homework. The next word is prince. A prince is a king's oldest son who is the next in line to be king. An example is Moulay Hassan is a crown prince in the African country of Morocco because he will be the next king one day. Disadvantages, things that are not good about a situation or circumstance. For example, there are disadvantages to being the youngest child, such as having to go to the bed earlier than your brothers and sisters. Prosperity, having a lot of money, success, or good luck. Here's one example. One could tell that the royal family had enjoyed long periods of prosperity because their palace was so large and luxurious. And then our last word is reign. The period of time during which a king rules a kingdom, like King Louis, was the longest ruling king in European history. His reign lasted for over 72 years. So listen to the read aloud for these words that you might hear while we listen to the story. The royal family. Most kings and queens wanted to make sure that they had lots of children, and they made sure those children understood what it meant to be part of the royal family. Being a prince or princess had both advantages and disadvantages. This picture shows King George V of England, the Queen, and 4 of their sons. As you can see, children in the royal family got to wear fancy clothing. They lived with their parents in a palace, which gave them plenty of space to run and play. Fine furniture and other beautiful things always surrounded them. For many kings and queens, having children was not just a matter of wanting to raise a family. In fact, children were the key to the future prosperity and success of the kingdom. But why were children so important? Well, children were important to the wealth and good fortune of a kingdom. Once a person became king, he usually remained king for the rest of his life. The period of time during which he ruled was called a king's reign. The same is true for a queen who sits on the throne. What's a king or queen's reign? Well, it is the kind of rain that we are talking about when we say, is it the kind of rain that we talk about when we say that it's raining outside? In this case, it's not. Reign means when they are in charge of something. That's one of our vocabulary words. And when the king died, his reign ended, and one of the children from the royal family became the new ruler. When you inherit something, it means that someone else, usually a relative, gives you something that once belonged to them. Often, when a person dies, their property or the things that they own, including their belongings and money, are passed on to family members who then inherit these things. This is what happened in kingdoms when the ruling king or queen died. Their power, or the right to sit on the throne and wear the crown, was passed on to someone else in the family. Royal families always wanted children, so the power to rule the kingdom stayed in their family. If there were no children, sometimes the power to rule the kingdom went to a different family. Someone who inherits something is called an heir. And this isn't the same as the air we breathe. An heir in a kingdom is the prince or princesses to the throne because they inherit the throne. That means that they get things from their parents after they pass away. The oldest son, or the most likely to be the heir of the throne, is called the crown prince. When we are talking about the crown prince as the heir to the throne, are we talking about someone who becomes king, or are we talking about someone who breathes air? Right, we're talking about someone who becomes king. He is called the crown prince because he's the next person to wear the king's crown and rule the kingdom. If there is no son, then the oldest daughter is the crown princess because she will be the next person to wear the crown and rule the kingdom. Remember that the crown is a symbol of power and that whoever wears it is in charge. This photograph shows King George V of England, the Queen, and 4 of their sons. The oldest son is all the way to the left. Here he is. And he is the crown prince because he will be the next in line to be king. The adults treat him with great respect, even though he is only a teenager. People hold doors for him and bow to him because he has the important status of being the next king. He has grown up having people serve him and tell him that he is very important. What is the next king called? Do you know? The next king is called the crown prince. You're right, or the heir to the throne. This is a picture of a place in a country called Morocco. Inside this big, beautiful palace lives a crown prince named Moulay Hassan. He lives with his father, mother, and little sister. His father is the king of Morocco. Moulay was born in 2003 and is the oldest son of the king. So, what is it called if he is the oldest son of the and next to be in line to be king? Do you remember? You're right, crown prince. Moulay will be the next king of Morocco because he is the oldest son and the crown prince of Morocco. The crown prince or princesses is a very important member of the royal family. Do you see what's happening in this picture? Well, in this picture, they hold on. The crown prince or princesses is a very important member of the family, and he or she receives a special education and extra special care in order to someday rule the kingdom. But what happens to the other princes and princesses, those who are not the oldest and heirs to the throne? Remember, the heir to the throne is the son or daughter who will become the next king or queen. Well, do you see what's happening in this picture? Kings and queens are often in arranged marriages. This meant that the princes and the princesses usually do not get to choose who they are going to marry. Their parents decide for them. This was because marriage was used as a way to form a partnership between two kingdoms, or a way for two kingdoms to rule together as a team. When a prince or princess married someone from another kingdom, as in this picture of a wedding between a princess from England and a prince from Germany, it was an important event. All the important people from those two kingdoms were invited because it meant that those kingdoms were going to be friends in the future. There were definitely advantages to being a member of the royal family, especially for those who liked living in palaces and wearing nice clothes. Do you remember what advantages are? Advantages are things that are good. Do you remember disadvantages? Disadvantages means that things are just not so good. But being a prince or princess wasn't all fun and games. There were definitely some advantages to being a member of the royal family, especially for those who liked to live in palaces and wear nice clothes. But the disadvantages included that they didn't always get to do whatever they wanted, especially when it came to whom they would marry. Often, anything they did was watched and commented on by others. Everything they did reflected on the kingdom and the royal family, and they had to be careful to behave in a royal manner at all times. So their behavior mattered all the time. There was no time for them to mess around or get in trouble. So that was the end of our read aloud part. So here, parents, is where you can ask your child these questions, or you can play the video and I will pause. When I pause, please hit the pause button and wait for your child to answer. Lesson 2 questions. Answers are within the parentheses. So the yellow part are the answers, parents. In a royal family, what is the mom called? What is the daughter called in a royal family? And what is the son called in a royal family? Here's the answer. In a royal family, the mom is called the queen, the daughter is called the princess, and the son is called the prince. So on the top to number 1 in the yellow, that's the answer. Number 2, what is a crown prince or an heir to the throne? Pause here. And here's the answer. A crown prince or an heir to the throne is the next king or queen to rule the kingdom. Question number 3. Why was it very important for a king or queen to have a child? Pause here. It was very important for a king or queen to have a child so that the child could become the next king or queen, and the power to rule the kingdom stayed in the same family. And our last question for today's read aloud about kings and queens in the royal family. Number 4. Sometimes kingdoms formed partnerships by making a connection or becoming friends with another kingdom. How were partnerships made between kingdoms? Pause it there. And here's the answer. Kings and queens arranged marriages between their children and children of other kings and queens in other countries. Then the two kingdoms would form a partnership or a team to rule together. And that concludes our read aloud for today. Thank you for listening.